Coming up on Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Alaine Pinto, all eyes on a showdown in the Texas State House. The Senate there and state leadership wants a ban of all THC intoxicating products. We talk with Texas J-Man from Weed and Whiskey TV.
It's $8 billion, Jimmy, here in Texas. 50,000 people employed. A lot of people using this.
Plus, the race to become the 25th legal adult use state, and Pennsylvania seems to be the closest with positive changes to their medical program. Other states like North Carolina and even Idaho are launching cannabis reform proposals. And some interesting surveys showing the trend for young adults continues to skew towards cannabis rather than alcohol. And across the pond, King Charles is reportedly using cannabis to help ease symptoms of his own cancer, while the New England Cannabis Convention takes over Boston, where it all began. On Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Alaine Pinto, next.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast News, PCM TV's weekly roundup of the fight to end cannabis prohibition. I'm Alaine Pinto. We start off every show with an appeal to our viewers to download our PCM TV app. It's the easiest way to keep up with all of the news from the industry. It is free and it's available in the App Store or Google Play. We start with the Lone Star State of Texas, a state that is led by a trio of prohibitionists, their Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and their Attorney General Ken Paxton. All three have tried to shut down the movement by the 8 cities and towns in Texas who have decriminalized possession of cannabis. This time around, it's the Texas Senate that has now passed a bill that will ban all intoxicating hemp products in the state. But remember, there are over 7,000 stores in the Lone Star State that sell hemp-based products, and over 50,000 people are employed in that industry. The Senate didn't care when they passed Senate Bill number 3 this week that banned all THC intoxicating products. The industry is freaking out and hoping that the House will block that bill or come up with one that will allow regulation and sale so the industry doesn't have to completely shut down. When it comes to all things cannabis or hemp in the state of Texas, we've got a friend named Jerry Joyner from Weed and Whiskey TV, who is right in the middle of everything in his state of Texas. PCM TV founder Jimmy Young talked with Jerry last week.
Thanks, Elena. And you know, when it comes to Texas news, the one guy that I think of first is a guy by the name of Jerry Joyner from Weed and Whiskey TV, because he and I met a few years back and we kind of bonded about our passion for the cause. Jerry Joyner joins us now from Texas. And Jerry, I got to ask you, what the heck is going on with your state right now?
Jimmy, thanks for having me on and having a chance to talk about SB 3, Senate Bill 3 here in Texas, that was championed by Charles Perry, a state senator, along with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. And the Lieutenant Governor in Texas does carry a lot of weight. We all anticipated, all of us that are the 50,000 plus people employed by the hemp industry here in Texas, anticipated this was going to pass through the Senate. They were just hard driving. Dan Patrick actually went out to some stores and tried to do some expose things. It kind of backfired on him a little bit. They were checking his ID, calling him out, you know. But with that, we're anxious to see how the House looks at this. There's no one we see right now that's championing their cause. And so we're excited that the folks in the House aren't just two guys trying to ram something down people's throat that's going to cripple a Texas industry. Is $8 billion, Jimmy, here in Texas. 50,000 people employed, a lot of people using this. And under the guise that children are getting this, that's such a misnomer, Jimmy. Are there bad actors? Sure, every state, every place, there's going to be a few bad actors. But the majority of all the folks in Texas in this space, they want age-gated products. They want child-proof packaging. They want proper labeling. They want C of A's. And these politicians want to ban this. But get this, Jimmy, they want to expand our medical marijuana program called the Texas Compassionate Use Program, or TCUP, which there's 3 players. You can go at a certain time on a certain day at a certain hour and get limited products. So what are all these people in Texas that are using these products going to do? One of our good friends, Lucas Gilcrease with Hometown Heroes, pointed out it should cost the state of Texas close to $750 million in unemployment cost, in people's leases. These people won't be able to sustain their business anymore. And we've got major retailers now in our area, up where you're at on the East Coast, that embrace THC. So we're excited to see what happens with the House.
Well, it'll be a good reality show. What flips me out, though, is you've got a governor, a lieutenant governor, and an attorney general who are anti-cannabis, anti-hemp. They don't want it. They've made it very clear. I saw the article about the lieutenant governor going into the hemp store, and it did backfire on him because they did it the right way. I mean, they actually followed the rules. How is this state of Texas, since you've got a decriminalized medical program, it's this big. We all recognize that there are issues. And you've got, I think it's 8 communities now, towns and cities, including Dallas, that have decriminalized it on their own, right?
Sure.
Is there a chance that there may be somebody in the House who understands that maybe we should have one regulatory body for both sides of this plant?
We sure hope that regulatory issues come into this instead of a ban. Okay,
right.
What needs to be done to make us all feel good that children aren't getting these products? Right. Jimmy, as you know, you've been on radio for a long time. I've been doing some stuff, and I get often asked about this issue with children. Well, I don't think children are actually going in these stores and buying these products like they try to make us feel through this fear mongering. I don't believe that that's happening. Do children get these? Yes, because of negligent parents. No different than getting an alcohol or the Tide Pod that you wash your clothes with was a problem a while back. So we got to use common sense and make sure and keep these products out of children's hands.
It's education. It's always been education. And unfortunately, the people in the lawmaking roles they don't want to get educated. They don't want to do the due diligence. They don't want to figure out what can be done to sustain what has been a vibrant industry. I believe there's 7,000 Delta 8 hemp dispensaries in Texas. I mean, that
Jimmy, you're pretty close right there. There's about 7,000 licensed hemp retailers. In other words, you pay $158 to get a hemp retailer's license, along with having a business license, and pay sales tax on those. So that's another thing that will be lost with this. But I think it's really interesting in closing out for you here, because I know we just got a few minutes, that our Texas law enforcement says that border seizures are down because of the people being able to legally get hemp. Who wants to go buy from a street dealer when I can go to the corner store and get a pack of gummies, get a couple of drinks, even get a pre-roll in some instances? And what's going to happen when people are used to having these products and they get banned? They're going to have to go back to and now we're going to have a proliferation of who knows what kind of products are in there. Yeah. Or bad products. So
that can sneak their way in, and human nature like that is always looking to cut corners and what have you. Jerry Joyner from Weed and Whiskey TV. Always enjoy chit-chatting with you.
All quiet on the federal reform front. The new administration has appointed many prohibitionists to key national positions at the DEA, DOJ, and FDA. So now we will focus on state reforms. It's still a race for number 25. This week, there were quite a few developments in states that either have a fledgling medical program like Texas, and others like Pennsylvania that has a strong medical program with close to 500,000 patients. Pennsylvania continues to make noise about advancing legislation to form an adult use market. And this week, a bill was passed in that state's House of Representatives that will strengthen the existing medical program. There will be more stringent testing of the products, audits of those products, and lab inspections for those products. Perhaps the most encouraging thing about this House bill was that it passed with bipartisan support, 194-8. It now moves on to the Senate. Meanwhile, the adult use movement is getting an infusion of cash from some of the biggest players in the industry and in Pennsylvania, too. True Leaf, Cresco Labs, Cureleaf, Verano, and Can Tech PA have all dropped thousands of dollars into the adult use lobbying efforts. According to Spotlight PA's report, over $1.6 million was spent for this effort in that state, with True Leaf leading the way with $210,000. Of course, their governor, Josh Shapiro, has already urged his lawmakers to get him an adult use bill to approve and implement. Here's Karen Black with our Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Green Finger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. A recent study by Arizona State University uncovered concerning levels of toxins in 16% of cannabis samples from Arizona and California. The tainted products originating from illicit sources and seized by law enforcement highlight the risks associated with consuming unregulated cannabis. The research underscores the importance of a regulated market with rigorous testing, and the findings serve as a reminder of the ongoing challenges in combating black market cannabis. One of the toxins, fusarium, is not tested for nor reported on by any state, which may indicate the need for stricter or perhaps broader quality control measures across the industry. Moving to legislative updates, after week 10, 5 cannabis-related bills remain under consideration. One, which would restrict medical dispensaries from locating near preschools and daycares, has reached the governor's desk. Another, which would allow dual licensees in rural areas, failed and was reconsidered last week, only to stall in the Senate. A third measure about advertising restrictions is also facing challenges in the upper chamber. The 2 other remaining bills concern cannabis research and adult hemp beverages. This ongoing process reflects the broader challenges of balancing public health with economic opportunities. In business news, Phoenix's Tilt Holdings has announced a significant strategic shift. It plans to exit its plant-touching operations to focus on its vape hardware business. The move is part of a broader effort to streamline operations, enhance profitability, and get out from under 280E restrictions. Tilt also replaced a board member and announced financial results. Revenue for the fourth quarter and full year 2024 were both down significantly, with net losses also increasing for both periods. The decline was largely attributed to challenges in its Jupiter Research hardware division. Despite these setbacks, the company reported improvements in gross margin and adjusted EBITDA. Analyst reactions to all that news, plus the announcement Tilt's moving its manufacturing from China to Indonesia, was mixed at best. That's all for this week's Arizona Report. I'm Karen Black from Green Finger Consulting, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Another state that is making noise on the reform front is North Carolina. Once again, the state legislature is ready to try and pass an adult use bill. In the past, all efforts have failed in that state that still has strict possession laws, but sells intoxicating hemp products all over the state. They named the Marijuana Legalization and Reinvestment Act as such, and the bill would allow adults over the age of 21 to possess, grow, buy, and sell cannabis. The bill also includes a 30% excise tax on all retail sales and an optional 2% more for municipalities to tag on. 50% of the tax money collected from those sales will go to the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. That would also include an allocation to social equity licensees. So, while some of these states are trying to set up programs that can sustain themselves, regulate testing, and keep the product out of the hands of children, others, more mature states, have different issues, even after a decade of operation. So here's Marianne Cursetjee with more from Oregon.
I'm Marianne from Alibi with the Oregon Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. The OLCC, the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission, has released a preliminary report about hemp products being shipped to Oregon. This project is interesting because many of these products are being shipped direct to consumers from other states. And while I'm not a lawyer, I have been told that states cannot interfere with commerce from other states. The OLCC report highlights a couple concerning issues. Number one, a high THC potency. So basically CBD gummies that also include THC. A lack of ID check, so that THC products could be delivered to minors without verifying their age, and unapproved ingredients and labeling. It will be interesting to see how far the state is willing to take this. And finally, plans are already in the works for 420, which is Easter Sunday this year. Stay tuned next week for news about events around the Portland area. That's the Oregon Cannabis Report. I'm Marianne with Alibi for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Our new Maryland reporter, Christopher Bright, is off this week, but there is one story out of Maryland we can share. The State Senate of Maryland passed a bill this week protecting the rights of first responders, including EMTs, firefighters, and other rescue workers from being fired over after-hours cannabis use. This is a good sign towards normalization in the state of Maryland as they continue to mature their operations and policies. Now let's check in on Michigan with Amie Carter.
I'm Amie Carter with Michigan Weedsters for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. In a major bust in southwest Michigan, police seized over 2,000 pounds of cannabis, along with psychedelics and a butane hash oil operation. The operation, located just 60 feet from a home with young children, raised some serious safety concerns. Multiple individuals are facing charges, and a hazmat team was called in to handle the cleanup. On a different note, February wasn't the best month for Michigan cannabis sales, which fell by 7.6% compared to last year. But don't worry, over $331 million in tax revenue from recreational cannabis is being distributed to local municipalities and schools, ensuring the community benefits from this industry. And in some more local news, a Macomb Township man is facing felony charges after authorities found nearly 120 pounds of cannabis and $7,000 in cash linked to illegal sales in his truck. And again, don't forget to mark your calendars for April 5th, which is Hash Bash in Ann Arbor at high noon. Cannot wait to see you there. That's your quick scoop for this week. I'm Amie Carter with Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
That'll do it for the A block or first section of Cannabis Coast to Coast News, but we have more state reports. Plus, here in Massachusetts, it's the New England Cannabis Convention at the Heinz Convention Center in Boston. Over 300 vendors and dozens of speakers are expected to attract a crowd of upwards of 30,000 attendees this weekend. PCM TV founder Jimmy Young is overing that this weekend. Cannabis Coast to Coast News continues after this break.
In the topicals category of home grow with the raw